One of the easiest way to create the days for a monthly calendar is to figure out the first day of the month. Then you can fill in everything after that. And that's actually pretty easy to do. We're going to go into our data viewer. We'll get rid of some of the stuff that's there and figure out how to get the first day of the month. All you do is use the date function. You always use the date function because you want to make sure that it works in different locales. For instance, the United States is month, day, year, but the United Kingdom is going to be day, month, year. So if you use the date function, FileMaker knows to switch the month and the day around for you. And that way, no matter who uses your solution, it'll work correctly. So we'll come in here and use date. We'll put in here our month, get current date, because it wants the month, day, and year to put together this date for you. Now you could go and do like this, and that would work. But again, what if it's not that? Maybe it's 131 or 121. Again, in a different locale, it's going to swap these, so that's not a good idea. But if you put it together in the date function, it's going to work much better. We'll put a 1 there because it's always going to want the first day of the month. And then we're going to say year, get current date. And that should do it. Let's see what we have here. We can turn on automatically or monitor right here. Oops, I missed a parameter here, or a parentheses. That's why it wasn't automatically calculating for me. I think I've got it now. Now we need one more here. Okay, there we go. Now it's automatically calculating for me. That's something really nice about FileMaker 17. You have this option here. So you can see the current month is actually May. It's actually May 31st right now. It's always going to give me May 1st. Now we're not quite done here. We could be done, but I like to make this a little bit fancier and use the let function and put in my declarations for get current date. It's used twice, and if we decide to use some type of different date here, then maybe a date from some pop-up menus, maybe you want to choose your months, then it's not going to be easy to change this because we have to, well, not terribly difficult, but a little bit complex because you have to go and find everywhere where it says get current date. So I always go ahead, and if I repeat code, I use the let function so we can go ahead and reference this at date up here. So that makes your calculation faster, possibly, if this is a complex formula or based on a relationship. If you only have to do it once versus, let's say, 10 times, it's going to be much faster. It's easier to update, easier to read. And I use this little @ sign because that helps me to identify where I can see the data here. I can easily see that @ sign amongst all the other code. It stands out for me. Not only that, it lets me name this let function variable anything I want. For instance, if I named it, let's say, date, which is the date function already, that's going to make the date function not work properly. But with an @ sign in front of it, it's completely different and works fine. So there's a lot of reasons why I use that naming convention. You don't have to, but I like it. So here we go. We've got our formula here. Now we're also going to go ahead and figure out the last day, not necessarily for this particular test that we're doing, this display calendar, but we want to do it because we're going to use it in the future, and it seems to make sense to go here along with the first day. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new function. We're going to use the date function again, and we're going to say, in fact, I'm going to be smart and ahead of time and do the let function. In fact, if I'm really smart, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this because then I can just change that easily because they're very, very similar. There we go. So still the declaration of get current date at the beginning, still this formula right here, but I'm going to add 1 to the month. So now it's going to be the first day of the next month, as you can see down here, 6/1/2018. And then, since dates are stored in FileMaker in terms of a number of days since the beginning time, I can actually take that final date, if it's outside the parentheses, subtract 1, and it takes you to the last day of the month. Because you don't know how many days are in that month. It could be 30 or 28 or 31 or maybe even 29 in a leap year. It could be something like that. And going to the first day of the next month and subtracting 1 is a surefire way to use the built-in date algorithm inside FileMaker to help you figure this out so you don't have to do it yourself. You don't have to write some long case statement that says, well, if it's this year or that year or this month or whatever. You just have something very simple. So there we go. Now we have the first day and the last day. I'm going to come here and copy this formula. Go into Manage Custom Functions, because I'm going to use this quite a bit, so I'm just going to make a custom function right after the bat. Call it first day. Paste it right in there, and that's all we need. Nothing else. So click OK. Go ahead and click OK. Come back here. Copy this one. Just using the keyboard commands there. Go to Manage Custom Functions. New. Call it last day. Paste it right in there. And if you're not familiar with custom functions, they're really handy. They centralize your code so that you can change it here, and everywhere where you call it, it's going to go ahead and update. So let's see how you call it. We'll go back to the data viewer. Put in first day. You can even see it's coming up as a choice, and it just automatically does it. If you look down here into the custom functions, you'll see first day and last day. Those are the ones you just created. So you can have things like parameters in there if you want. We didn't need one here, but we will change this formula later in case we do need those, or add in another custom function. But for right now, we're basing our monthly calendar off of the current date. So now it's going to say, okay, whatever is the current date, we're going to look at that month. And so when we get to June, then the calendar is going to automatically update for us. So we'll take a look at our custom functions again, just to give you a real good idea if you haven't used these before. Here's where you'd enter your parameters if you want to pass in some kind of value. We're eventually going to pass in a month and a year from a global field to do this instead of using the get current date. And you'll get to see custom functions again if you don't completely understand them yet.